So we're going to talk a little bit about the initiation program, small area games, all these topics that have been talked about so far, and maybe just go into a little bit more detail with them. And year-round hockey, which, well, I think it's stupid. So that's my opinion on that. I think kids should play all kinds of sports and enjoy things and play games where people aren't giving them instructions all the time. I think all of us as minor hockey coaches can relate to this. I always used to joke if I would have kids in my history class or social studies class sitting at 40% and never hear from a parent, but if one of the kids didn't get their 6 shifts in the third period, they would call. So parents kind of have a little different opinion of what's really important and what isn't. So when we look at long-term athlete development, I'm old and I'm being recycled. The next team I'm helping some teams, but the next team I'm really going to coach is my grandson, who's in the bottom right-hand corner here. He's 2.5 years old, and I'm going to coach him in IP. And the last time I coached IP was 1986, where my son, who's in the top, same high chair because we're in a single-income family, and same house, but these are things that you know, when I think now, and I'm in a different frame of mind than when I had my own son and wanted him to be the best and play at the highest level and stuff like that. But with my own grandson, it's more about just, I really hope he enjoys the game. We've got him hockey nets downstairs. We've got him sticks. He's got his own set of hockey gloves. And when I shoot a puck or a ball at him, he usually just leaves it and goes and plays with his blocks or his trains. So it's a different thing. But I just want him to have fun. The big thing, I want him to be safe. And I really hope he gets a coach, if it's not me, that will really help him enjoy. When I look back, when I coached, it wasn't called IP then. I don't know what we called it, 7 and under, I think. We played NHL size, NHL pucks. We had refs out there that blew, I distinctly remember this, blowing offside, and the kids did not know what offside was. And they felt bad. And I remember one kid got his first penalty, and they put him in the box, and he started crying because he didn't know why. The ref came and took him by the shoulder and made him sit all by himself on the other bench. So to me, it's completely illogical that my grandson at 6 years old would go out on a sheet of ice and play with the same puck, the same nets, on the same size of ice, with the same rules, and a referee that Jonathan Taves or Sidney Crosby did. That's insane. You know, how can that little guy do the same things that these guys did? So I think the initiatives at Hockey Manitoba, and I think it's pretty courageous because I'm sure Bernie and everybody in the office, the phone's ringing off the hook about how stupid we are making them do things. But to me, it's the only thing that makes sense. We're the only sport that doesn't change the size of the playing surface. The only major sport. Basketball, they lower the baskets and the balls are smaller. Volleyball, same with the nets. Baseball has completely changed with T-ball and parent pitch because they're adapting so kids can be involved. When I was in Finland, right outside we were in a place called Latte, was the ski jumps. Has anybody stood at the top of a ski jump and looked down it? Has anybody ever had a chance to do that? It's insane, isn't it? Like it's crazy. And then around the corner were all these little wee ramps that the kids would start on. You know, if this was us in hockey in the 1970s, we would have put the little rat right up in the top of that and let him fly off the end. Okay, but so you know the changes we're making to me are positive. When this came up, I started looking around at other sports and like the football in Brazil, and I was reading that the top players came from the slum areas, and they played futsal, which was soccer in a little wee area indoors, because they didn't have, you know, in little wee places, they didn't have the big training facilities or anything. And I like the thing, no time plus no space equals more skills. And Pele and Zico, some of the top players.
And now something I found to remind you how it should be. When you are a kid, it's easy. You are not afraid to try, to dare. You do it just because you like it. So my advice to you is never grow up, my friends.
But the small area like that's what we're trying to do with hockey. When you play in a small area, you've got to use your skills. You use different skating skills. Things happen quick. There's no time. There's no space, and you get better. And you get lots of ball touches here, lots of puck touches with the hockey. So I think when we have young kids, it's probably when you coach, and when I remember back the first practice. I was done playing university hockey. I coached Tony Franklin and his Renegade friends and AAA hockey. And then my son turned 5 years old, so I started coaching them. And I had lots of great ideas. And I remember the first day out there, I numbered them off, 1, 2, 3, 4. I drew the drill on the hockey thing. I said, "Way you go to your corners," and I went around and I erased it, and I looked up, and there were 17 kids in one corner and one in the other. And I realized before my first drill that I'm going to have to do things a little different than I used to. They won't know the rules. If I say attention deficit disorder, how many are coaches here? Can you think of 5 kids on your team when I say attention deficit disorder? You know who, yeah. I think of Matt and Omar. Okay, Matt was our import from our Muslim from South Africa, and Matt was our attention deficit disorder from England. And in Deloraine, whoever was there, you just brought your bags to the rink and you played on the team. So we had Chris Nielsen, who was the first overall pick in the Western Hockey League, playing on a line with Omar from South Africa. So that's reality in small towns. Kids at this age can't often do a bunch of things at the same time. So skating and stick handling and staying on side for a 6-year-old is something they can't process. They don't have the ability to do that. Terminology. Have you ever been out with the kids and you say, "Get on your left foot," and half of them don't know what left and right is? Like that's reality when you're dealing with these little guys. And they're going to need lots of repetitions to stabilize their movements. So, with those few things in mind, the idea of modifying the ice, modifying the equipment, makes nothing but sense. Instead of having a ref out there with the stripes on and a whistle, which is a little intimidating, just let the coach do it or have a parent do it. Parents are doing it anyhow in the stands. They might as well be on the ice. You can modify the rules. Like it doesn't really matter if there's any offsides. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference in skills. Explain rather than give penalties. Control the shift lengths, okay? And teach those key concepts. Like to me, a minor hockey practice of IP or novice or squirt should simply be a combination of skills stations and small area games. And just roll those over and do those. Systems and stuff don't work. Systems don't work in the NHL very much. As long as you know where somebody is, that's kind of the idea of a system. But, when you do breakouts, like I coached AAA midget a couple of years ago, and we would do 5-on-0 and couldn't get out of our end half the time. We could, if you can't make passes, you can't get out of your end. So, if you don't have the skill, if your drills are falling down or falling apart, it simply means the skills aren't good enough to do those drills. Okay.
I mean, it's daunting. It's huge.
Yeah, that's the main thing. It's just size is just too big.
Oh no, it's too big.
When
I stepped onto this ice surface, I kind of was looking down and trying to figure out where it started and stopped.
It's the view of what ice was like when we were kids. You know, this is what it was like, and you forget that when you get older.
Looking out at this as a kid, it would be overwhelming. Just wondering, you know, if you're going to get up and down the ice surface.
We thought this was for a completely different sport.
It almost looked like a joke here. You know, you see the giant nets and everything. There's no way we're playing full ice on this.
Am I gonna play on this? Oh, jeez. No.
That is a big net. I mean, the goalie's like, he's standing up and it's above his head. I'm like, it was crazy.
There's so much room on the ice that you end up spending a lot of time in open space, and you're not touching the puck.
We realized how bunched up we were, spread out, and used the ice, but then you weren't part of the play. You were so far out of it.
And a lot of chasing and just not much contact.
If you're out of position once, you're not going to get back in it. You're done for the play. So, yeah, it's very unforgiving.
If you're caught out of position on this thing, oof.
With a big sheet of ice, there's a lot of one-on-one type play. So if you can beat one guy, the other team's so far away they can't even catch you.
If you're a defenseman and you're beat, you're just going to probably more or less tend to give up.
On the long passes, the passes are so long that they're easy to intercept.
It's hard to communicate because everybody's spread out so far, and you're out of breath, so that makes it hard too.
I need more water. A few more minutes to breathe would have scared me if it was my first time, because I can't do that every day.
Thanks, guys, for the worst skate of my life.
I'm exhausted, and even just once up and down the ice, I came out here and had to lay down in the track because it was just wearing me out.
If I was just a little guy, I want to play in as small of ice as possible.
There's too much time between the action.
I think for kids with their attention spans, it makes it even more difficult because they lose interest if they're not involved in the play.
Anybody that would experience it for the first time would not be able to pick up the style of play, how to be in position. It would be way too difficult. There's way too much area to cover.
It's a little less thrilling, a little less exciting. Just the way you play out here, it's nothing like that you'd play in real life.
The surface is way too big to learn on.
As ridiculous as that looks, that's what happens when we put 5- and 6-year-olds on the same size as ice as Sidney Crosby. And I think what Hockey Manitoba is doing, and it's in your pamphlets that were handed out, these are the new rules, these are the new structures which to me make perfect sense. We talk about old traditionalists opposing this. Well, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and I'm definitely old. But I think it's a great idea. When I look for my grandson to be playing, I'm glad this came in and it's legislated. So, and the other good thing it does is when you go back to your associations, you don't have to argue anymore. You can just say those bad boys at Hockey Manitoba made it compulsory, and I think that's an advantage. So shared ice. So that's one thing with games. The same thing with practices. Like if you do small area games and practices and cross ice, the town I live in, ice time isn't a problem. We don't lock the rink, and our kids, a lot of our kids get on the ice. We have 2 practices a week, quite often 2 games. We want to run a breakfast club or 2 a week, and we have shinny night on Monday night, and the rink's open any other time you want to go. So you can basically be on ice 6 or 7 times. But I know that's not reality. The only place better than that is probably Elkhorn, and they get on ice 8 days a week, right? But in bigger places, the idea of sharing ice and things like that to me is important. We run a breakfast club in Delray. I think we got about 20 going in Manitoba now. And we go in the mornings. I'll talk a little bit about this later, but just open the rink up and do skills with the kids for 40 minutes. Tony and I do it, and a couple of other guys in Delray. And we do that once or twice a week, and we just do straight skill stations. Sometimes coaches come out, and the coaches quite often will just take that practice and use it for their practice later on in the week. Free ice, I think, is important. Just let kids go out and play and be creative. And we need to help our coaches. I know what you guys are like. I'm a volunteer. I don't work for Hockey Manitoba. I'm a volunteer coach, and I know what that's like. And what I like is support from the parents, support from the association, that what I'm doing is okay, and enough ice time to help. Getting parents to get you. it's fine to say we're going to run 6 stations at a hockey practice, but that means you need 6 coaches out there. So that's the kind of support. And you don't have to be a genius to do it. You know, just get out in the ice. We as coaches can set the station up and have you run it. What do other countries do? Bernie and Tony and I have had the opportunity to travel in Finland. And when we look at Canada, we've got 625 hockey players. Finland's got 55,000. And Finland is always within 1 or 2 rankings of us. In fact, the last time I was in Finland, we'd lost a few World Juniors, and Finland was ranked ahead of us. I don't know if they have world standings on where countries fit in all the time, and Finland was actually ahead of us. 50,000 players. That's about Saskatchewan and Manitoba combined. Finland, the first 2 years is all skills, no games. The spring of the 3rd year, they start playing cross-ice games. Now, I think that would get us all shot. If we went back and said, we're not going to play any games. And, you know, I like this in a way, but to me, it's a game. Kids want to play. They want to play, and I think you should play some games. Cross-ice games at 8 and 9. At 9 and 10, they do some half-ice, some cross-ice. Quite often when the Finns play, it's 8 kids on a team. So if you've got a town with, you know, you got 17 kids on your team, you say, well, how am I going to get everybody ice time? Well, their solution with that would be just make 2 teams. You know, so you got an IP game against it's Deloraine against Boissevain, and you know, we've got 16 players, they got 16 players. We'll just divide them up and make 4 teams and play cross ice. Everybody gets out every second shift. You know, the dad in the stands can put his stopwatch away and see how long his kids' shifts are, and everybody's happy. They don't play full ice games till 10 years old. I got an email, a guy in Czechoslovakia who, actually I've never met him, but we kind of talk over the computer. He sent me an email last year. My kids are so excited. It was Christmas time, and he says they're 9 years old and they get to play their first full ice game. That's what the rest of the world's doing with that. The American system, if you go online, I think the one question we always ask is, you know, how can I plan all these things? Well, Hockey Canada's got a Nike skill book, which is really well done. I can't call it Nike anymore. Dean, what are they? Just skill manuals? Okay, skill manuals. If you go to the American site, if you've got coaches, they've got all the drills for a whole year made up for 6 and under, 8 and under. And you can just go to them, print them off, go over them with your coaches. Are they exactly what you want? Probably not, but boy, it's a good idea where you can take them. So, you know, when we tell these coaches, we want you to run stations, we were talking, IP coaches usually turn over. Like when my son started playing hockey, I coached him for 2 years, then I moved all the way up the system with him. So I was really bad to start with, and I was kind of getting good at the end, but that was the end of it. And what happens? Somebody else takes the IP program over, then somebody else takes the IP. So we need to help the people good enough to coach. But there's a 6-station practice. It's all written up. You can hit a button, run it off, and away you go. Hockey Canada's got a great new site called Drill Hub, which to me is the best resource we've ever had in hockey, and you can just go on there. Who's been on that? Useful? Yeah. All kinds of drills, and not only are they drawn out, but they're actually, you know, there's video clips of most of them. So that's a little different than what we're used to, but that might be what an average practice might look like for your IP kids. You can see up there, too, that you'll have some skill stations, and you'll have some small area game stations. So they might go stick handle for a while. You might have one with a skating drill. You might have one where they're playing a small area game, etc. Takes a little organizing, but your kids are fully engaged the whole practice. Quebec, they have what's called a MAGS program, and Bernie's going to speak a little bit later on long-term athlete development because he's on the Hockey Canada group for that. But this is compulsory. And they've gone out and spent $250,000 hiring mentor coaches to go out to associations to run these practices with the coach. And you have to run those 20 practices. And once that's done, and your kids have got to start to the year, then you have the opportunity to start playing some games. But they will be cross-ice games too. So that's kind of a quick look at some places around the world and what they're doing with this. So this is kind of the new reality. But scale-wise, to me, makes perfect sense. You know, just like that rink we watched before, how we were laughing, saying, "Isn't that stupid? Look at that net. Isn't it a stupid size for those guys?" Well, that's what we're doing when we're playing full ice games. Good book if you want. Mike Babcock's book. It's very short. You can probably read it in a couple of hours. But he talks about change. That there's always ups and downs, and adversity is the springboard to success. And that's probably what we've got here, where we've had controversy, and the Hockey Manitoba staff has put up with all the bumps and bruises, but now we're finally at a place where, because of that adversity and because of the conflict, I think something good's going to come out of it. You can't let outcome get in the way of progress. Okay? You can't let outcome get in the way of progress. Now, at seminars like this, I was at one with Mike Johnson, and somebody said to Mike, "What part of your skills at the junior," this is when he coached Portland, "what percentage of your practice would be skills?" And he said 70%. That's at the Western Hockey League level. Okay. Mel Davison was here, and Mel did a great job with our women's team. And I asked her the question, I said, "Mel, if you had a 14 and under Bantam girls team, what percent of your practices would be skills?" And she said 100%. That's all I would do. Because when Mel gets girls to come and play on the Canadian national team, they can teach them the systems probably in a weekend. Systems aren't, I remember Claude Noel, when he was employed in Winnipeg, he says, "Our forecheck is F1 steers, F2 shuts the wall, and F3 cuts the middle. And if they're thinking any more than that, they're playing slow. And you want them to play fast." So systems you can teach. Skills you can't. You have to teach those all the way along. Corey McNabb, who's the Director of Player and Coach Development Hockey Canada, did a survey with the Western Hockey Leagues. This is about 7 or 8 years ago. What do you want? What's lacking in kids, and what do you want for kids to come up? And you can see what he says. There's deficiencies in the skill level things. They don't care if kids know anything about power play, anything about forecheck, or anything. Give us skilled players. That's what we want. When the presentation was going on last night, Corey McNabb sent me this email, which is he has a beauties file, and I think this will go in there. Said, "Corey, I'm coaching novice house league. Novice house. Looking for drills to practice dump and chase and come out of our end." Now, that's what we're dealing with, like full ice dump and chase drills at a novice house league. Crazy. Brett Sutter, when he got back from the World Juniors, when we finished 4th place, I think 2 years in a row, Dean, wasn't it? And he said, when he came back, his feedback was, "We are playing teams that have more skill than we do. Their players are better skaters, they're better passers, they're better with the puck than our Canadian kids are." And his call was to get back. And Don Cherry really ripped him on this, if you remember, on television. But I think he was very honest. And he says, it's not about X and O's. It's not about playing a AAA level at Pee Wee or Bantam and being 4th line and learning how to trap and learning how to left wing lock. He says what we should be teaching at those levels is skills. Okay. So in a practice, it's important to practice more than play, I think. Like even the minutes. Like if you've got a 1-hour game, you're going to be out there maybe 15, 20 minutes. Okay. In a practice, you're out there the whole time. We don't have many practices a year. Like in Deloraine, our ice isn't in yet, but if you get 2 practices a week and count in your holidays, you're probably going to get 35 or 40 practices the entire year. So you need to have your ducks in a row and what you're going to teach and what skills you're going to implement. So the pyramid here, you can see with initiation that we've talked a bit about today, it should be 85% of your practices should be technical skills. Skating, passing, shooting, stick handling. And then a little bit of individual tactics, which might be, one-on-one play, a a little bit, stick on puck, that type of thing. And that changes as you go up, as you can imagine, because when you get to midget and things like that, you need more tactical play to be successful. But that's certainly what we should be looking at. So what we don't want is this. Okay. What do we see? Yeah, you see one kid moving, I don't know how many, 20? 15 or 20 kids on the board watching him. Okay, so we got low reps and something that has no resemblance to a game. Okay, this example is a full ice scrimmage where 1 or 2 kids are going to completely dominate and other kids aren't going to touch the puck. Okay, what we need is high reps, drills where basically you can see the kids got a blue puck, they got pylons out. There's no pylons on the ice, but that's okay. You gotta, you can use them so you can herd the cats here. And you get lots of reps. So when they're done, they just go to the back of the line, away they go. And then small area games. So games where the kids are around the puck, they're excited about the puck. I saw a 7 and under game in Souris. The Souris rink is, where's Guy? Probably skipped out. Well, that's good. We caught him. I think it's 200 by 95. It's just about Olympic. And having a 7 and under game there was absolutely ridiculous. There was kids that never got close to the puck and completely lost interest. It was like Kevin saying there when he cheered when he touched the puck. Like, that's reality. So what we want is game-like as possible and as many reps as possible. So we're probably going to want in our practices to have set drills where we can teach the skills. That's one aspect of the game. The other aspect of the game is reading and reacting to pressure and protecting the puck and competing and having fun. And to me, that's what practices should be for young kids. Skill stations with lots of reps, and then throw in things that are lots of fun. Okay, you can't play in the orchestra till you can play the violin first. So you need to develop your skills. And then when the thinking part of like young kids aren't going to be able to stick handle, look up, read pressure, who's with me, who's against me, and make those decisions. That's going to come later. You can't teach those things to little guys, but it'll come. Now the NHL level, Mike Johnson was out at a camp in BC run by Nate Leslie, who's a friend of mine, and they talked about this summer when he was out there that they've built a new rink, a new practice rink in Pittsburgh. And what they're going to do is at 11 o'clock, the players are going to come out and they're going to do drills that you and I would do with our 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. All skills. Then they're going to go practice on the big rink. Meanwhile, this one's getting flooded. And then for guys who want, like Crosby and Kunix, he says they're the first 2 guys in the line, they'll go right back out on the ice and work on their skills again. That's NHL. NHL level. Every day they're going to take a half an hour of skills as a team. They're going to run their normal practice, and then guys are going to go work on their skills because they know if you don't do that, you're going to lose it. Who's this? Gets a pretty good paycheck doing that. But he's smart enough to know that's a drill you would do with your bantams or your midgets. As you get older, like Babcock talks about structure, work ethic, and skills. He says at a pro level, that's the order. You play with structure, you work as hard as you can work, and your skills will shine through when you're done that. Okay, so we need to develop the skill base, and we're not coaching to develop players, but for the NHL. But if kids play to have fun, all kids want to improve and get better, and you do that by building the skill base and then adding the rest.
Fired in by the defenseman.
So Crosby's little skill he was working on comes in pretty handy here.
Puck is loose. Crosby went in to steal it. Takes it around the net. Sidney Crosby coming out. Tied up. Gets loose again. Shakes off that check. Goes the other way. Crosby owning the puck. Trying to get out front of the net. Crosby does get out. On his knees, got it back. The tank fires. Scores!
So But basically, that's a result of building your skill base up. Okay? So we are what we do. Excellence is a habit. Okay? My first introduction to small area games was at the Winnipeg Arena when Andy Murray, who's a friend of mine, was coaching the Jets. Who were the two guys in the picture? Ty Domi, Igor Ulanov, right. And Domi didn't like Igor Ulanov. And the day I was there, they would line up for their small area games, and Domi would look and see where Igor was in the line, and then Domi would move guys around and just throttle. He must have deserved it. Ty, I'm not sure, is the brightest bulb either, but the first time I saw small area games was NHL level players playing a 2-on-2 in an area from about me to the wall away. Okay, because they're protecting the puck, they're battling, they're shooting. It's great for goaltenders, all those things. And teams, as Kevin said, still do that today. So you limit the space and you increase the pace. Okay, limit the space, increase the pace. The little kids who don't have a chance in service of even going the same way as the puck are now 3 or 4 feet away from it, and they're going to work to get it, and they'll touch it more.
The hot topic in the NHL right now is analytics, the statistics behind the game. We're really looking at ways to drill down in our sport and statistically measure all the things that are happening so that we have a better understanding of really how the sport is played.
We're at Joe Louis Arena, home of the Detroit Red Wings, and we were lucky to have Little Caesars provide their AU Mite team. And what we did is we put them through an exercise of cross-ice hockey, half-ice hockey, and full-ice hockey.
The kids will be wearing the same technology and being tracked the same way the National Hockey League tracks the NHL players. And it's in terms of puck touches, shift lengths, and really the exercise today is to show what the right sizing of the rink means with those metrics.
Each player has a unique ID number on their RFID sticker, so we know who's coming on the ice, who's coming off the ice instantly. And this is the first time that we actually are using our technology in an amateur game, so this is kind of exciting.
Well, in the cross-ice game, what I saw was a lot of body contact.
Well, it's not as big, and you have to work in more tight spaces, and it's a little bit harder because everybody gets on you quicker.
During the cross-ice game, I stick handle through people and I shot top shelf and scored.
I got to touch the puck more in cross-ice.
In the half-ice games, what I was amazed about was the puck control, which allowed them to make short 5-foot puck support passes. When you open it up to the large sheet, to the full-ice game, what you see really is one-on-one hockey. Yeah, basically it's one move, it's one bounce of the puck, and then it's a full-ice breakaway.
I didn't score in full ice because I wasn't passing the puck and they didn't pass either.
Well, full ice, you don't get to touch the puck as more unless you're playing not a that good skilled team. Cross ice, you get to touch the puck more no matter what, and you have lots of good scoring chances. On full ice, you don't get that many scoring chances.
What we're able to prove in a setting like this is that the statistics behind the game for cross-ice hockey are a lot closer to what the NHL is than the full-ice game at 8 and under.
I think those small area battles are huge, and cross-ice really helped my development, as a youth.
As I'm sitting here watching my child play, I don't know how many times he's touched the puck. I don't have a stopwatch. I don't know what he's doing. I'm hoping he's having fun and learning and building skill. But to know that for a fact, it's reassuring.
I think it's terrific. Anytime we can make decisions that are based on data, that have fact behind it, I think it's fantastic.
These numbers
show what's good for a child. Now I think it's up to us to take a step back and say we're willing to institute programs that help kids fulfill their potential. I think that's who USA Hockey is. I think that's what we should be.
It's, you know, I think the hockey world, when I was over in Finland, we stayed in a house. There was an American, a Finn, a Swede, and Slovakia, one guy from Romania, but everybody sharing hockey ideas, and I think that's so great now. It's different than I think it was 20 years ago, so I don't mind showing a USA Hockey clip here. I think if it's a good teaching tool, it's a good teaching tool. So this should probably, I think, be reality for us from now on. What do you notice in this picture? That's full ice hockey. One kid's got the puck. I call it straight legs because nobody's working. The one kid with the puck's going hard, everybody else has got it on cruise. And that happens with small kids on big sheets of ice. So we want to develop skills. We want to teach read and react. We want them to play with teammates. We need to plan for that, but most of all, we want to make it fun. I work with the under-17s in Calgary in the summertime for a week each year. And this year, we had the under-17s last year. This is the top 103 kids in Canada come together. And what we did this year, Kyle was our group leader, and we had a great coach who was really on board. And what we did, instead of teaching systems, the 30 minutes of every practice, we went out and did drills that I would do with a bantam team or a pee-wee team. Just basic drills with these players, skill drills. Then I had them for 90 minutes, and all we did was defenseman drills, and the other guys did forward drills. But basic drills. That's the top 100 kids in Canada. We did skills, skills, skills. Okay? And we also did small area games. We took 2 teams, so we had 42 kids on the ice and played small area games. The highlight of most of those kids' week in Calgary was the small area games. It was unbelievable, the competitiveness. So much more effective to me than full ice, and such a good evaluating tool for our coaches to see who played in small areas and who battled. I had an opportunity to coach at Western Michigan University with Andy Murray, who I think is probably the best, if not one of the best coaches in the world. We had 110 practices that year. Full ice scrimmages, 0. Didn't do it. Not one. Average age probably 23, 24 years old. That's just one we practice power play on. Got a 4-on-2 on each side of the ice. Puck hops over to the other side. Now this power play 4-on-2 goal. That's the other side of the board. So what you're getting there is high tempo. Everybody's around the puck. They're banging, they're crashing. We talk about teaching kids checking and body contact in practice. Just put them in small areas. They're going to bump into each other, and they're going to learn how to hit, and they're going to learn how to get out of the way. Another opportunity we talked about, I'm just going to rip through this quickly, was a breakfast club where I was telling you we go out in the mornings. We have the kids come on the ice for 40 minutes, and then they have 20 minutes free ice because we think that's important, unless there's chocolate chip pancakes, and then they all come off early. We feed them, and then they go to school. So this is our lobby. Everybody comes. We don't make them put on equipment. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but you don't want them smelling like you know what when they go to school, like their hockey bag. So we come out, we do drills with them, all skills, nothing but skills. We give them some free time. We feed them breakfast. We just do fundraisers in the community and cereal sometimes. Sometimes the mums will come in and make some pancakes. Feed them all. We're lucky our school's about 2 blocks away. They just walk to school. Enjoy it. And teachers tell us they're the most wide awake, ready to go, alert kids that they have. Okay. So that's kind of what we do. Our goal was to provide an opportunity at home to develop. Okay, we talk about sports schools and all this thing. What we're trying to do is create opportunities at home. If you look at Elkhorn and the players they turn out, that's not by accident. That's because of Garth Mitchell and guys like that in Elkhorn who at their rink make it available to kids, make instruction available to kids, just flat out let them go out and play around with a puck, and you develop kids. You put them in the Western League, you put them in the NHL, you put them in the Manitoba Junior League. Elkhorn per population probably has one of the highest rates in Canada of developing players. That's not an accident. That doesn't happen by accident. It's a reason. Here's 4 of our girls that have been coming to the Breakfast Club for about 7 years. Jenny Moore, who was the captain of University of Maine, is now playing professional in Switzerland. Kara de Keisel and Tegan Kassan, who played in Wisconsin Superior. Ashton Bell, who just got offered a full ride, probably at a couple of schools. I don't know what she's going to take. But just an opportunity for these kids at home to do this and develop. Now, you can run a breakfast club and maybe nothing's going to happen, but you're giving kids opportunities to develop, okay? And it's a game, and they're kids. We got to remember they're kids, and they have to be treated like kids.
Run! 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 Jump! Jump! And rest! Rest! Run! Run! Now, I know we've had a rough day, but I'm sure we can put all that behind us. My whipping arm! Oh, why does everything I whip leave me? So we got to be careful with all these things. It's got to be fun for the kids, and they got to enjoy it. Hockey Manitoba provides a lot of support, and it's a new program, but Hockey Manitoba's got the resources. There's mentorship clinics available. Then the mentorship program, for a lot of you know, Jeff is still. His body is still hurting. Where are you, Jeff? You still recovered from that one? Jeff stepped on a puck and went down as hard as anybody I've ever seen. And if the bar hadn't have been within driving distance, I think it would have killed him. But I think he's okay now. But clinics are free to your community. We'll come out and do small. We got a small area games clinic. We've got a puck control clinic, which talks about what we just talked about today. The skills manuals, Hockey Canada does a great job. There's also the sites, the American site. Breakfast clubs, if you're interested in starting a breakfast club, we'll help you do that. Kyle, there's a $250 grant, I think, isn't there? Or used to be? What, $250 that can help you get started to start with. Face-off, Hockey Manitoba is initiating some things for the young kids, which I think is a great idea. There's Drill Hub, which has a great Hockey Canada site, so there's lots of stuff out there. Just a real quick talk on year-round hockey. I'm going to turn it over to Bernie. I think the big thing in summer hockey and these extended programs is the idea if I don't do it, I'm going to fall behind. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Was it Brian Savage he used as an example? Yeah, doesn't. We went, in our family, when my son was 9 years old, we went to New Zealand. And my son never put on a pair of skates for a whole year, played rugby and played cricket. His first game of rugby was the New Zealand kids, in a nutshell, are rugged. I remember he was out playing, looking around, and somebody flipped him the ball, and he kind of went like this, and this kid hit him as hard as I've ever seen anybody. So that was his introduction to rugby. But after that, he tended to like it. But he never skated for a year. So anybody who tells you that you have to do this to keep up, you're going to fall behind, I just don't think it's true. It's not true. Becoming an athlete. Statistics, most of the top performing people are multi-sport athletes. Okay, Tony and Brian will know we have kids in town, some kids who've played hockey all their lives without playing other sports. I think there's one boy who I won't name, but he can't throw a football, he can't throw a basketball, he can't do anything. It looks funny to watch him. But you need to become a year-round athlete. I think Bernie's going to talk about the idea of overuse injuries yeah, which are prevalent now because, and we aren't, if you think of your body, skating isn't normal. When we walk, we push straight out to the back with as little resistance. Skating is like this. I was a defenseman. I don't see anybody doing this out in the hall. If you do, there's going to be a little van pick them up and take them somewhere. But skating backwards isn't natural. Okay, this, you know, if you went like this if you can do it for over a minute, you're pretty. They do wall sits. A lot of pros, and it's 30 seconds and up. Like that, that's getting pretty hard on this old guy right now. But that's how we want them to play. So it's unnatural things to the body. You can't do that 12 months out of the year. And the burnout.
And so I'm certainly not an expert at long-term player development or athlete development. I guess what I touch on a little bit more is a hockey-specific examples about players like a Jerome McGinley and a Shane Doan that weren't drafted in the WHL draft. And as Bob mentioned, Bob didn't mention this, but I spent a week in Calgary last week in an invitation from Mel Davison and worked with our senior women's national team at their fall festival and had conversations with some of their strength and conditioning people and some of their coaches when I was at the camp. And the thing that they all talked to me about was they look for athletes. It's the first thing they look for. The stories I had in conversations with a couple of strength and conditioning guys were about the top athletes at the under 18 camps and those types of things. And certainly Mr. Campbell brought it up yesterday about the overuse injuries of kids, players wearing braces when they're 12 and 13 on their knees and having shoulder and ankle injuries. So Bob, you just had the slide of Jordan Spieth up, didn't you?
Yeah.
A second ago. You know, if you listen to a couple of things that Jordan Spieth's talked about this year, he's an exceptional athlete. He played all different types of sports, never specialized in anything until he was 13 or 14 years old. Everyone knows Ed Jovanovski. He was a first pick overall in the NHL draft. He never stepped on the ice till he was 13 years old, and at 18 he was a first pick overall. So, you know, it certainly is something that I think that it's our responsibility as an organization, myself as the director of development, to start to get this information out to people. I think it's important that we let our constituents, our members, know that the best athletes will make better hockey players. In my conversations with one of the gentlemen last weekend, one of their strength and conditioning guys at the camp, we talked about early specialization sports like gymnastics, dance, those types of things where people learn to move, they have trainability opportunities, and those are the people that have some level of success. So I think we as an organization, I had this conversation with Peter this week, you know, maybe it's time that we start as an organization letting people know how to become a better hockey player by potentially getting involved in other sports. And these are the types of sports at certain ages that would benefit you if you want your son or daughter to be a better hockey player as they grow. So that's certainly something that I'm going to be looking into, probably be talking to some of the people at Hockey Canada, and potentially Dr. Norris, just about how to promote that the right way. And you know, I think we'll probably be the first branch in Canada to do that. But I think if we're looking to be one of the leading branches in the country, I think it's our responsibility. So that's sort of I'm not an LTAD expert, but I've been a proponent of cross ice games ever since the day I saw the Winnipeg Jets on the ice. And then the next day we ran our IP face-off, and we had the same kids on the same ice surface with the same weight pucks and the same size nets. So, which to me is ludicrous. You know, the culture of our game has changed. I think we owe it to our kids to be better. You know, we're all in this game to support kids, and so you know, that's certainly a challenge from our organization, for myself, is we got to be better for our constituents.